Now, often when we're talking in the museum, we're often talking about that they can trust. Now these days we're talking in the museum, we're often talking about satellites and what have you. But back now, we've got often that they can trust. Now these days we're talking in the museum, we're often talking about satellites and what have you. But back, but they have given me a tank out here. Tanks have got wheels, lots of them. This is the M24 Chappie, and it's interesting because in many ways we've got half a dozen often that they can trust. Really, we're talking in the museum, we're often talking about not exaggerating. I'm really not exaggerating. So if you do have anyone out there who might be a bit susceptible, might be a bit late to rush out and get the independence from the front of house, but do please be aware that when it goes off, that £6 makes half a dozen often that they can trust. Really, we're talking in the museum, we're always talking about not exaggerating. I'm really not exaggerating. So if you do have anyone out there who might be a bit susceptible, might be a bit late to rush out and get the independence from the front of house, but do please be aware that when it goes off, that £6 makes. And the Chappie tank, here they go. There they go. Thank you for your attention, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to go down and hand over now to the Garrison Artillery, and you'll see if we can make you jump with some live bands. Really not exaggerating. So if you do have anyone out there,
I know most of you from here today
from the
but you're not going to
please just be aware that when it goes
off, £6 anti-tank artillery piece.
And the Chappie tank.
They will be mocked up, as you can see, as paratroopers, getting the gun into action. Despite rumour to the contrary, most tanks were destroyed during the Second World War by anti-tank artillery, not tank-on-tank action. Tanks were not designed really to be fighting each other. We've had tank artillery. Now your previous speaker spoke about the 2-pounder. This was the early war artillery piece used by both the Royal Artillery and the infantry divisions.
I'm going to go down and hand over now to the Garrison Artillery.
1940,
and you'll see if we can make you jump with some live bands.
All production, despite the fact the 6-pounder was already on the boards, ready to be produced, we would have had to have retooled the entirety of our armaments industry, and we were so short of anti-tank guns, it was decided it would be way better to have lots of antiquated 2-pounders than it would be to have a whole load of 6-pounders still in the factories. So, you know, in the dark days of the 1940-41. But then, as things progressed, we ended up bringing the 6-pounder into action. 57 millimetres, if you want to think about it in millimetres, a lot of people do. But the gun was quite special. It was low, had a very high velocity, and had no controlling wheels to turn it left and right. It was moved entirely by the gunners on the gun putting their shoulder either side to the barrel, and it could move in a 45 degrees either direction to get out there. Magnificent weapon, relatively light, very potent. Production of these guns some 17,000 made in 42. We had a further 18,000 in 1943. But then production went off in 1944 when this gun itself, that had replaced the 2-pounder, then was replaced in the Royal Artillery by the 17-pounder, and all the 2-pounders that were left went to the infantry divisions. As you know, hopefully, as you know, each infantry battalion had 4 infantry companies and a weapons company, an S company, which had 6 anti-tank, 6-pounder anti-tank weapons. So, I also believe my previous speaker told you that the gun was quite loud. It is quite loud, and you're going to get a few bangs coming out of it in a moment. So just to let you know how loud this gun can be, we'll have 1 round of gunfire, which will now be loaded and fired. How about that? Little round of applause for our gunners there. So that's just the warm-up. That's just to get you ready for what's to come. Now then, this gun was upgraded during the war. There were only 5 models ever made. 2 of those went into the tanks. It was one of the most prolific guns that were mounted in British tanks right up until 44. Churchill tanks still carried them in 45. But the gun could be upgraded. So when it first came out, as this one is over there, it could penetrate at 1,000 yards, 74 millimeters of armour. That was pretty much better than anything the Germans had got in 1942, and when it saw its first combat action for real at the Battle of Gazala, it decimated both the Italians and the German armour. And then became a race. The Germans upgraded their armour, so we had to upgrade our gun. And we would then put into that an armoured piercing capped shot. And we could then, at 1,000 yards, get 88 millimeters of armour, take it out, penetrate it. And to give you some notion, the Tiger tank, although it had 100 millimeters of armour at the front, only carried 80 millimeters of armour to the side. So a 6-pounder, if it got a side-on shot at 1,000 yards, could take out a Tiger. And indeed, it was 6-pounders that took out the first Tiger tanks in North Africa, and also the first Panther tank in Italy. But then the Germans got a bit sneaky and started to put more and more armour onto their tanks, and eventually the 6-pounder could still manage to penetrate 146 millimeters of armour when a discarded Sabot round was loaded. So this gun, despite rumour to the contrary, was upgraded and was very, very effective in combat against German tanks. So, without any further ado, our crew, or detachments as we prefer to call them, will now engage in some rapid tank action, and we'll try and bat out 5 rounds for you. So please be prepared. Action, forward.
Take action!
hands off.
Road complete.
Thank you very much. Round of applause for the Garrison Artillery Volunteers and the 6-pounder anti-tank weapon.
Oh, yeah, that time's off.
Yeah. I have three. My producer and a whole thing called.
We had in the shed years ago, taken apart, never quite put back together again. That vehicle, again, we're crowdfunding at the moment to get that one restored. So again, we've got this stream of restored vehicles we can bring back to the museum and show off at events like this. The only unique vehicle, this one here, left in the world, obviously, and we always point out the fact the biggest direct fire gun ever mounted on a tank. So we think Tiger's big, but when you get to 183 millimeters, obviously an even bigger bit of kit there. Now I'll mention what we said a little bit earlier, which is in a moment we're going to be bringing on the Tiger. I'm going to hand over to a colleague who's going to take you through. We've got History in the Making with us here today. They're going to be helping us put on a little bit of a mock battle in our arena, how the Tiger was captured, and then we've got some lovely...
Now the Sherwoods have advanced to the second one, incoming again. Was that a hit on the M3? To an extent, ladies and gentlemen, the armour so far deployed by the British, initially it tipped the balance, but the Sherwoods have been promised heavy armour support. They know, they hope, it's going to turn into a firefight now to the Sherwoods, incoming again, and the Africa Corps. Evenly matched at the moment on the M3. It really depends on whose armour turns up first. To an extent, ladies and gentlemen, the armour so far deployed by the British, initially it tipped the balance. And it's the British. Here comes the British Matilda 2. The Sherwoods have been promised heavy armour support. The battlefield. They know. Queen of the desert. Or certainly was anyway a year or so before, fighting the Italians. It's very heavily armoured, mounting a 2-pounder gun. To dislodge, it's going to turn into a firefight now to the second one. Incoming again. And the African. With the arrival of the Panzer III, again going to change the dynamic of this battlefield. Evenly matched at the moment on the M3. It really depends on whose armour turns up first. To an extent, ladies and gentlemen, the armour so far deployed by the British, initially it tipped the balance. And it's the British. Here comes the British Matilda 2. It's deprived the flanks of the Sherwoods. This is heavy armour battlefield. They know. Queen of the desert. Or certainly was anyway lost their own support, fighting the Italians. The Panzer III is coming in support. Very heavily armoured, flanking the position the Sherwoods are in. 2-pounder gun. That position is becoming increasingly untenable, and yes, they're withdrawing now. To dislodge, it's going to turn into a firefight now to the second one. Incoming again. 55 tons. With the arrival of the 88mm gun. It's again going to change the dynamic of this battlefield. Evenly matched at the moment on the M3. It really depends on whose armour turns up first. This is Hitler's wonder weapon. This is the tank that Hitler thinks is going to win the war for him. To an extent, ladies and gentlemen, the armour so far deployed by the British initially intimidated the British. And it's the British. Here comes the British Matilda too. It's deploying the shields and visuals. Heavy on the battlefield. They go. Green on the desert. Well, certainly was anyway. Lost there in the war. Fighting for Italian. Panzer III is coming into support. Very heavily armoured. Mounting a 2-pounder gun. And that position is becoming increasingly untenable. And yes, more by the rival now. The Tiger, the Afrika Korps are advancing. So desperate, they're laying down so much fire on the Afrika Korps and on the ineffective fire on the Tiger, they don't even realise 48 RTRs arrived on an eminence behind them. It's coming into a firing position, so we can have a go at the Tiger. But they're also desperate to finish off the Sherwoods. My goodness. Ah, right, we've taken out the Panzer III first. That was a more equal contest. Churchill had the measure of the Panzer III, but how will it fare against the Tiger? Which after all is a Panzer VI, so an entirely different. The Tiger's close. Go on, Sherwood, it's got to be worth a shot. Right, both Sherwoods and the Churchill have fired. I'm looking for evidence of a hit on the Tiger. The Tiger's gone very silent. The Sherwoods are pushing their advantage. Rushing the Afrika Korps, getting fire down on the infantry. And that's it, the infantry have gone. They've passed their last position. They're heading back down to Tunis. This could be the end of it, and still no sign of the Tiger crew abandoning their vehicle, but it seems pretty clear it's been knocked out. It was close. It was, to quote the Duke of Wellington, a damn near run thing, but the Allies have taken point 174. The road to Tunis is open.
With a Vickers machine gun. This version's got the Beezer in. About 600 Mark IIIs are made. It's got a new welded turret. It's got extra armour welded on the front. And by the end of the war, Churchill tanks have got more armour on the front than the famous Tiger I up on the Rip up the Versailles Peace Treaty. They say no, we're going to actually, under the new Nazi regime, we're going to make tanks again. Panzer I, Panzer II, training tanks. Panzer III, with the, that's this fellow coming around now with the idea of a tank that could go at a relative speed, take on enemy tanks. Panzer IV, short-barreled 75mm gun, infantry support. Not quite the same as our own infantry tanks, but similar ideas there. That was a very sensible programme that they start on. It's Hitler who comes along, as I mentioned earlier, to says, forget all that. First of all, you're not going to be ready in time. We're going to go to war ahead of the game. So they have to use Czechoslovakian tanks in 1940. Third of their things we learned, great ergonomics. Commander in the middle at the back of the turret. He's got on one side, on his right side as he looks forward, is the loader, on the left side is the gunner. He can even see forward right to the front of the tank, where Battle of Alamein. This is the famous improved model that we used in the Fury movie, hence it's got all its accoutrements on still. It's a later version of that M4 tank. This one called the M4A2. And again, for simple terms, I know we've got lots of tank nerds here today, but if you didn't know, why all these different model Shermans, M4A1, M4A2, M4A3, most of that's about the engine. Quite simply, there's 11 manufacturers. That noise you can hear there, it's an aeroplane engine. Radial engine, sorry, 1950. Their head of development says they're not going to make another tank, they're not needed anymore. They're looking at strategic bombers, nuclear weapons, suddenly the Korean War comes off, and they realise they made a mistake, so they have to develop that. Tanks 38 set to talk to the infantry. And as we know, tanks, if they're going to work effectively, have got to work well with the infantry. These are issued December 44. We take them back again, a bit like I said earlier. They didn't want the guys fighting the German tanks in the Battle of the Bulge with new stuff. So they reissue them in January to 7th Armoured Division, and they see action before the end of the war. With the Comet, they started right trying to put a silencer on the